Hello and welcome to another exciting episode in our podcast series, Unlocking Learning Pathways, the podcast where we explore stories of leadership, innovation, and transformation in the workplace. I'm your host, Paula Harper Grant, and today I'm joined by a remarkable leader, Alison Gittens, Deputy Director of Staffing at the Ministry of Public Service in Barbados. Alison spearheaded an initiative called JLEAP, the Job Letter E-Ticketing Application Process. Now, this modernized and streamlined a previously chaotic system for job letter requests. But what's even more inspiring is how her leadership training helped her navigate the challenges and bring this project to life. Welcome to our podcast, Alison.
Thank you so much, Paula. It's a pleasure being here.
Now, Alison, we're going to start with the problem that led to the creation of JLEAP. What was happening in the ministry before this project, and why was a change necessary?
Okay, so the Ministry of the Public Service was an amalgamation of three entities, three separate and distinct entities. This was prior to 2018. You had the Training Administration Division, the Personnel Administration Division, and the Ministry of the Public Service. So these entities, like I said before, were amalgamated into one entity. That then required a change in how we did things. We were still operating as three silos, and we had some processes that needed modernizing. One such process was how we requested and received job letters. So I was nominated to participate in the mid-level leadership program. And one of the requirements for that program was a stretch assignment where I was required to develop, conceptualize, develop and implement an improvement project that would seek to streamline some process within the ministry. I had, prior to that, had some conversations with a colleague who worked in the private sector. Because I'm into HR, she's into HR, trying to figure out how we could, improve each other's workplaces. So when I was given the assignment, I, sought to find out what I could do to help the ministry. So I had a conversation with some of my work colleagues and the HR officer, because with the amalgamation, then we had one HR officer who was responsible for the internal HR matters. And I had an experience where I wanted a job letter, and that role was previously carried out by another officer, but with the amalgamation, things changed. So when I sought to get this job letter from the officer, she said, well, no, she's no longer responsible for that. Somebody else is. But she would just pass on the message to the person. And several days after, I still hadn't heard anything. So then I had to reach out to the individual, to the HR officer directly. And in having a conversation with the HR officer, then she expressed her frustration, obviously, with the process because it was kind of challenging. People would meet her in the car park or in the elevator. I want a job letter. Or see her somewhere, it could have been at work or not even at work. I want a job letter. So trying to keep track of who wants a job letter, when they want it by, things like that made it difficult for her. So, recognizing that we are operating in a more modernized environment and needing something that would be more formal and seamless, I conceptualized the job letter e-ticketing application process and, met with my colleagues, met with the HR officer and the IT officer, because obviously it is a technologically driven process. So to get their feedback and to hear from them, whether they think it could work, what challenges that they were having with the same process, and how it could be improved. So there was an existing system that IT used, which is the help desk. So if you had an IT challenge, or you wanted one of the IT officers, you would send an email to the help desk, and it would be picked up by one of the IT officers, and they would respond. You would get a ticket number, and they would respond. So I thought, okay, how could we use this existing process? Because, like I said, I didn't have a lot of time. But how can we build on the existing process to make it work for applying for a job letter? I, you know, collaborated with the IT officer, and he said, okay, he'll give it some thought to see if it could work. And so we worked and we tweaked and we worked and we tweaked, because, I'm thinking, if this is a simple process where you could reach out if you have an issue to IT, why can't we not have a similar process, but where the HR officer would be the recipient of the request, and that the requesting officer then would be provided with a number to say, well, this is your number. It queues in a system, so there isn't any randomness in terms of when she applies. It is a systematic process. Sorry, not when she applies, when she goes to see who she needed to prepare a letter for. So it's not just picking out, well, Sue, oh shoot, Sue tell me she wants a job letter, or Paula wants a job letter. Very systematic, and so we had to work it up to that point. All right, so that aspect of the process became seamless. But then there was the other side of it. Okay, so we get it to the HR officer in a seamless manner, but how do we incorporate her preparation of the letter, and then the requesting officer receiving that letter in a similar seamless manner? And also, how do we help them to manage their expectations, because they don't know when they're going to get it. So we needed to have a policy to inform that system. Okay, so that formed all of the conceptualization phase. I had to then pitch it to my Director General for her approval, Miss Atkins at the time, and she signed off on it. She, was excited about it, and she signed off on it. So then we went through a series of iterations, to get it right and to get it done within the time frame, because there are two things now. Yes, I have an assignment to do for the training program, but I also I am doing improving the process for the ministry, but I have to get it done by the time the course is finished. Which was the course in itself. The length of the course was about 3 months, but I had just about 4 to 6 weeks to get this innovation in place, or at least conceptualize and document it. But I was like, I don't just want to conceptualize and document. I want to have everything implemented by the time we're finished. So that was done. I was able to utilize a lot of the knowledge that I gained from that program to help me through that process. communication strategies, active listening. I obviously had to meet with my co-workers, get feedback from them, and listen and tweak. And we had a focus group. I met with some of them on a one-on-one basis, and they were excited as well, to be a part of it and to be a part of something that would move the ministry forward. So that that was basically how J-Leap came about. The J-Leap is only after, because I was trying to find a nice, acronym to title the rather than saying job letter ticketing application process, because it's long. I was like, okay, all right, J-Leap, which is really, the first letter of each of the words. So J-Leap was implemented on the 15th of December 2020, and today it is still utilized by the ministry and its staff. Seamless process. The officer sends an application, a request for a job letter. It goes directly to the HR officer into a queue. Then the officer can either take an existing job letter and just maybe change the date and the salary if necessary, all within the system that was created, and just respond directly. At the same time, the officer who would have made the request would have received their number in the queue. And like I said, we did a policy as well, so they know that within 2 days they will get the job letter, unless there was some extenuating circumstances, which the HR officer was then required to communicate to help them to manage their expectations, because we didn't want to have a recurring situation like we had in the past. The system was supposed to have changed that whole process and make it more efficient, and which it did.
So this was clearly a significant operational challenge.
Yes, it was.
But what I want to know from you is, how would your training have prepared you to carry out this project?
Okay, so the training, the main themes within the training was leading self, leading others, and leading from a citizen-centric approach. So obviously in project, because it was a project, I had to manage the project, and so I had to be able to lead myself. I had to be able to employ the strategies that we were taught. Again, like I mentioned before, in leading others, the communication skills, the active listening, then I would have also been required to use some project management skills, doing the work breakdown structure and the workflows. I had to do as a part of the assignment, and also change management, because we're now moving into a different way of doing things. So how do you implement that change? How do you get persons on board, get their buy-in? I had to get the buy-in of the GHR as well as the officers, because ultimately those were the persons who would be using it. So it could not have been, or should not have been, a case where you just implement a system and thrust it upon them as the users. So it was like a bottom up. It was done bottom up as opposed to top down, where they helped to inform it. They were a part of it. So ultimately, when you have that, you get buy-in from this.
So then it was fair to say that the leadership training gave you a kind of like a specific lens through which to approach this challenge.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, yes, I would have called on or pulled on other skills, existing skills that I had, like a lot of project management skills. But the leadership training not only provided the platform for me to be able to conceptualize, develop, and implement the J-Leap in collaboration with my colleagues, but it provided me with those skills that I needed to interact with them to make it a smoother process. Those leadership skills, in bringing the project to its completion.
Now, you mentioned quite a few techniques and strategies that you would have learned. Which ones would you say that you found most impactful during this project?
I would definitely say the active listening, because that was something that I never paid attention to before. Um, because, people will always have different perspectives, will come with different energies, different issues, but that particular strategy really helped me to step back and let them, kind of drive the process. Um, hear them get their take on stuff, and that I would say the active listening, um, as well as there was something called the below, and know your location, where you are, whether you are above the line or below the line. And sometimes we can get a little pessimistic when things are not going well, or we can find ourselves closing off when we experience certain issues. So you call those being below the line, and above the line where you're required to stay open and to the process. Even though it may not be going the way you necessarily had envisaged it, you have to stay open, and so those two strategies helped me significantly. Um, and I just want to say this is on the side. Whilst the mid-level leadership program um, prepared me, or helped to prepare me for that stretch assignment, it was not the first or the only course that I did through the Learning and Development Directorate. Since I entered the public service some 28 years ago, approximately 28 years ago, I have benefited significantly, I should say, from different learning and training programs offered by the Learning and Development Directorate, either in its current iteration or in its former state when it was training administration division. For example, the most recent one that I benefited from was a Women in Leadership program that I was nominated for. It was facilitated by the University of the West Indies Cave School of Business, held in Miami earlier this year. I was nominated for that. And also in 2016, I was nominated for a public administration course in Singapore. And the experience, the knowledge, and the skills gained from that course helped me tremendously in my role then and since. And since I've been utilizing that knowledge, as well as other training courses, whether it's presentation skills, interpersonal relations, coaching and counseling, etc. So I said all of that to say that there are significant opportunities that the Learning and Development Directorate provides. The fruition or the development of the J-Leap was one, in my instance, in the Ministry of the Public Service, but I'm sure that there are public officers who can speak to several skills and knowledge that they would have gained from participation in these courses that would have helped them in their respective roles. So I would encourage all public officers, whether it is to develop your soft skills, communication, your interpersonal relationships, time management is another one. Whether it's the development of soft skills or other areas that can help you to supplement your existing formal education. I would encourage any public officer to stay tuned to what learning and development offers. There's so much there to be taken advantage of that would help you in your professional as well as your personal development. The Ministry of the Public Service would have benefited from the application of the knowledge that I gained from the mid-level leadership program. And I can only think that more of that can lead to the transformation of the public service, or would have in different areas, but we don't speak about them enough.
So now that JLEAP has been in existence for 4 years,
Yes.
what has been the impact?
Well, it has changed the operations of the Ministry of the Public Service, made it, with respect to job letters, it has made it more, brought it more into the 21st century, so to say, because it was very archaic before. And officers are using it, no complaints. They've been, some persons would have heard about it, some persons outside of the ministry who expressed an interest in having it within their ministry. But that is something that they would have to spearhead. I would not be able to take it to them and say, well, here, use it. It's there, it can be used, but they would have to spearhead the efforts. But JLEAP is still doing wonderful things. It's still working seamlessly. No issues, and officers are getting their letters in a timely manner, and the HR officer, well, we've had a different HR officer since then, but that frustration would have been removed, so the officer now is working more efficiently and can better manage the process and manage their workload because they have a systematic process that works.
Now that's a huge win, Alison.
Yes.
And what lessons from this experience would you like to share with other leaders?
First, I would say to capitalize on the opportunities, the training opportunities provided through the Learning and Development Directorate, because that was the catalyst for JLEAP. So God knows, who knows what else can come out of these programs that can be used to assist the various ministries and departments in improving their operations. Use the knowledge gained, not just to say, well, I did the course or to have the certificate, but to really make a difference within the public service. You will, and I can guarantee that you will garner some lifelong skills that would help you in your existing role as well as roles to come, because there's always the element of promotion or moving on to other ministries or departments. But I would say use L&D, whether, like I said before, you can see what other, not only provides you with training opportunities locally, but internationally, where you can see what other people are doing, where you can see how we can do things better. It puts into a different perspective. Like I said, when I did the course in Singapore, it opened my mind in such a way that it could never be closed again with respect to public administration, with respect to how they how they do things. The networking, different people that you meet that you still, I mean, this was in 2016 that, like I said, I benefited from that experience. And today, I still liaise with people from all over the world who would have attended, because at that time I was the only person from Barbados, but they had people from all over the world. And we still keep in touch with one another, and we still share experiences. And if somebody's having an issue within their organization, we, discuss it, try to, pull on each other's knowledge and experience. So, I would encourage all public service leaders and those who are on the way up to capitalize on the opportunities provided by the Learning and Development Directorate so that you can assist the public service in moving forward.
Now, that's absolutely amazing advice, Alison. And I want to thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure having you on our podcast, Unlocking Learning Pathways. And thank you for sharing your journey and your lessons you would have learned along the way.
Thank you. You are most welcome, Paula. And I thoroughly enjoyed having this conversation with you and sharing all that I learned about J-Leap. And I am hoping that it would, provide the impetus for more public officers to take a course with the Learning and Development Directorate or training opportunity. Lovely. It never goes to waste, never. It always, it's always something you can learn to apply to some aspect of your job or your life.
And to you, our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you've been inspired by Alison's story, remember, leadership isn't about titles. It's about making a difference. Until next time, I'm Paula Harper Grant, and this has been Unlocking Learning Pathways.